Hello, students. Good to have you guys back again. Well, are you guys ready to finish our very last thing of notes for the very first unit? Yay! Does this mean that we're done with the notes? No, absolutely not, guys. We're going to be doing this till May. I know. So exciting. But anyway, we are done with this unit of notes, guys, and we are going to have our test coming up very soon. So, this chapter has been about the Renaissance and all the changes that the Renaissance has brought to Europe. Let's talk about one last change. Our central question today, 2.7, is how did the Renaissance and the Age of Discovery impact the European economy? All right? Pause if you need to. All right, guys, now look, economy is just one of those words where, adults say the word economy and we say, oh, we know what we're talking about. But maybe we don't think not everybody, like a young person, knows what the economy is. Guys, an economy is just literally every nation has one, and it's basically what goods are bought and sold in your country and how much money is made and who makes the money and what is the value of money and what are the prices of things. That is all encompassed in an economy. All right. But basically, if we were just going to say, what does an economy mean? What does it mean for a nation to have economy? It just means that a nation buys and sells stuff from other people and nations. Okay. So what we're going to try to find out today is how was this age of discovery and how did the Renaissance and the age of discovery, guys, change, how goods are bought and sold in a nation? Well, let's talk about a commercial revolution that happens in this time period. Commerce, guys, it's another word where we might, as adults, throw around that word and just assume everybody knows what it means when maybe we don't. Commerce, guys, just literally means trading, all right, goods for trade, all right? So, a commercial revolution is going to happen this time period, all right? So in the 1500s and 1600s, you're going to see this change in commerce, all right? And like I said, commercial just means relating to commerce or trade, okay? All right, now, let's talk about something that is one of those changes, and it's called double entry bookkeeping. All right. Now, this is actually in one of those things that AP European History has in their little standards that they talk about, but it's something that I don't know if a lot of people talk about. What is double entry bookkeeping and who came up with it? Well, the guy that's credited for doing this is this guy named Jakob Fugger. All right. You can call him Jacob Fugger if you want. All right. Although his last name is Fugger and not, the other, what you might. Anyway, let's move on. Jacob Fugger. So, guys, here's the deal. Jacob Fugger was a wool merchant. And let me tell you, before I tell you what double entry bookkeeping is, let me kind of tell you what they did before double entry bookkeeping, okay? So, I want you to think about a business, all right? The practice was, if you owned a business, that you only kept track of the money that people gave you, all right? Oh, this person paid me this much money. This person paid me this much money. All right. I sold this to this person. They paid me this much money. That is single entry bookkeeping, where you only keep track of the money that you're making. And while that's good and all, you don't really know how well your business is doing unless you start keeping track of the money that you're spending. So look at it this way. Everybody in a family, whether or not they have one on paper or I have mine on a spreadsheet, everybody has a budget, which means you make this much money every month. All right. But we also have these things called expenses. We spend this much money. Now, the idea is not to spend more money than you make, right? Well, here's the deal. If you are only doing single entry bookkeeping, then you don't know whether or not you're making a profit. All you know is the money's coming in. All right. Now, when you really start to be able to make a lot of money is when you understand, are you spending more money than you make? So what Jacob Fugger started to do was he started to keep track of not only the money that he was making, but the money being spent. Okay, double entry, not just watching the money you're making, but also watching the money that you're spending and seeing whether or not you're making profits. Now, guys, once Jacob Fugger learned to do this double entry bookkeeping, he's going to start making a lot of money. All right, because he realizes, oh crap, I'm spending more money than I make. I need to stop that. And his business is going to grow. Jacob Fugger, guys, is going to become extremely wealthy. And pretty soon he's going to start becoming a financier. One of the wealthiest, most important people in Europe at one point, guys, is Jacob Fugger. Why? Because he becomes this ridiculously wealthy person. All right, and with wealth comes power. All right. Now, pretty soon, guys, everybody is going to start doing double entry bookkeeping. And this is where, like I said, businesses are really going to start exploding because they're keeping track of whether or not they're making a profit, which means you make more money than you spend. Okay? All right, so it's going to lead to a change, guys, in the way business is done. Now, another change that's going to happen because of Columbus and the discovery of America and all these things is the creation of these things called national companies, all right? The weed eater guys out back, if you can hear that, that's what that is. Let's see if it gets any louder. Mm. Wait, that's not the weed eater, that's the weed blower. But anyway, all right, let's talk about the creation of national companies. So, European nations, even though nations don't really exist right now, European powers are going to start to make government-sponsored companies. One of them is going to be the Dutch East India Company, and the other is going to be the British East India Company. Now, what these are, guys, is these are companies that are controlled by the monarch or the leader of your people, all right? All right, like I said, is it really a nation yet? Kind of thinking about it, but not really. So, basically, guys, the leader of your country is going to sponsor, like the King of England is going to sponsor the creation of this company. And the idea is these people are going to go to India, the Indies, and they are going to trade and set up trading posts with the Indies and bring resources back to Europe that they don't have. And this, guys, is going to make the crown a lot of money. Okay? So, like I said, these are for-profit companies, which means they're doing double entry bookkeeping and keeping a track of how much money they're making and spending. And the goal is to increase trade in Asia. Why Asia? Because they have spices and resources that they don't have in Europe. All right? So, one of the side effects of these companies is they're not only going to go there to trade, they are slowly going to start taking over and conquering other parts of the world. All right, like the British East India Company specifically, is going to start grabbing up land and territory in India. Pretty soon, guys, it's going to conquer India. All right, so that's a new thing too. That the effects of the Renaissance and the Age of Discovery is the creation of these national companies. Okay, pause if you need to. All right, now let's talk about another side effect. Well, gold and silver from the Americas. Why? Because discovery of the Americas, Europeans are going to find a lot of gold in like the Aztec capital, the Incans, and they're going to bring a lot of this gold back into the to Europe. So Europe, guys, is going to be flooded with gold and silver that they're going to turn into currency. Now, remember, one side effect of flooding your economy with currency is inflation. That gold and silver starts being worth less money. But eventually, once it gets minted into a money supply, and after a while, goods and services, goods and money kind of stabilize, the money supply kind of levels out, and then you get new minted coinage. All right, people are going to start saying, "Hey, this is the coin from this is money." All right, okay, hard money. So. But at first, guys, it causes inflation. Now, what does inflation do? Well, guys, let me give you an example of inflation. Pretend right now, every one of us have on average maybe $1 in our pockets, right? Okay, $1. Is that a lot of money? Not really. But if I go to the store, you can buy a candy bar for about $1. Now, I know what you're saying, Lawhan, it's like $1.63. But let's pretend it's $1, right? Okay, so everybody in our pocket right now has $1, and we can buy a candy bar for $1. What if, guys, the government printed money and just started giving more money to people, then all of a sudden tomorrow morning we wake up and we've got $1 million in our pockets? Did we just become richer? You might think so, but are we really richer if everybody has $1 million in their pockets? And the answer is no. That's called inflation, all right? Just because there's a lot more money doesn't mean that that money has value. As a matter of fact, the value of your money just dropped because everybody has $1 million, right? So $1 million becomes not worth very much money. That's inflation. Now, what does that do to the prices of goods? Well, think about that candy bar. Can that candy bar stay at $1 if everybody has $1 million in their pockets? No, otherwise one person would buy up all the candy bars. So the prices of that candy bar is going to have to rise, right? To $1 million. Right? So, guys, that's inflation. All that means is there's so much money in circulation that the value of it drops. Okay? That is another side effect, guys, of the Age of Discovery. Another side effect, the emergence of early capitalism. Now, capitalism is something that we're going to talk about all the way up until the end of this class in May. But capitalism essentially is this. wealthy people with capital, that's supposed to be yellow. What is capital? Well, just the resources to start a business. Like, let's say you own a ship, that's capital. All right. So, wealthy people with capital are going to use that capital to provide a good or service for profit. Let's say you own you own a building and you own the tools it takes to process tobacco. All right, you can take tobacco, dry it, and turn it into a good that you can sell. Well, all of those tools are capital, okay? So, people with capital, which are called entrepreneurs, people that can start their own business, are going to start, guys, making money. They're going to start providing this good, all right? And the whole goal of capitalism is profit. You are going to make a good in order to make a profit, right? You sell tobacco. Why? Not because you're trying to be nice and give everybody tobacco. It's because you are trying to make a profit yourself. That's capitalism. You have the means to make a service or a good, and then you make money off that. And they know they're making a profit. Why? Because they're doing double entry bookkeeping. Now, one of the things that's eventually going to happen is capitalism is going to lead to an increase in wealth to all of those people that own capital. If you own a ship or you own a building to start a business or things like that, you are going to become extremely wealthy. Meanwhile, all the people that work for you are not going to become extremely wealthy. So one of the side effects of this are going to be this gap between the wealth and the poor, but also, guys, a gap of a power struggle between business owners and workers. Entrepreneurs, guys, are going to learn to create monopolies. A monopoly, guys, is when you own one resource. For instance, for the longest time, Spain is going to have a monopoly over tobacco. They're not going to let anybody else know how to make it, all right, know how to grow it, and sell it. Why? Because if you are the person that controls one resource like tobacco, then where does everybody have to go to get that? You. What can you do to the price of that? Charge whatever you want. Guys, that's called a monopoly. All right, owning all of one resource. So people like Spain are going to have a monopoly over tobacco for a while. Now, other people are going to learn to grow tobacco, and then they are going to break that monopoly. Now, one final thing, guys, with this capitalism is it's going to cause merchants to become really wealthy and really powerful. And who are they already fighting for power with? Nobles, right? Merchants, guys, are just as wealthy as nobles, but nobles have privileges in some places like France, where if you're noble blood, you don't have to pay a certain tax. But if you're a wealthy merchant, because you're not noble, you have to pay that tax. So there's going to be this kind of back and forth between power struggle between nobles and merchants. Plus, guys, in France, only nobles can own land. Merchants can't. It doesn't matter how much money they have. That's one of the privileges of being a noble is you can own your own land. So you're going to see, guys, because capitalism is going to make these merchants wealthier, there's going to be an increasing power struggle between the nobles and these merchants. Pause if you need to. All right, now, last thing, guys, a last trend is this. Well, guys, as more and more merchants are going to start thinking, oh, you know what? I'm going to start growing cash crops because I have slaves in the new world. Well, guys, they're going to start growing these plantations, all right? So, plantations weren't invented by Europeans, but they are going to be perfected under Europeans. Basically, here's the deal. A plantation is when one guy, one capitalist, has a bunch of land and he has the tools and the money to grow crops. And what you do is you basically pay wage labor or you use slaves to grow a crop for you. You keep all the profits, you sell the crop, and you make a lot of money, all right? So, one landowner using slaves to grow a crop for profit. That's a plantation. How many slaves do you have? I don't know, anywhere from 50 to 100. It depends on how big the plantation is, what kind of good you're trying to grow. Now, why is this harmful for peasants? Well, guys, you're going to see later on, peasants have this agreement with nobles that they're allowed to work this land called the common land, right? And they get to keep a portion of their crop and sell it and make money, and they give a portion of the crop to a landowner. But guys, landowners are going to say, why should I let peasants grow crops on this land, all these different crops, when I can just fire them all? And what I can do is grow whatever crop I want, have a bunch of slaves, and make a lot of money. So all of these peasants that used to be able to grow crops are going to get kicked off their land. It's called enclosure. We'll talk about it a little bit later. So as all these peasants are getting kicked off the lands, that's going to lead to revolts, right? So anyway, guys, what we are seeing here, guys, are these new trends in economy. Double entry bookkeeping is going to make people very aware of whether or not they're making a profit. And that is going to lead to an increase in capitalism and an increase in a desire for profits. That's going to lead people to be ruthless and kick people off their land so that they can make more profits. Guys, that is the effects of the Renaissance and the Age of Discovery on the economy. Guys, that's the end of the notes. I'll see you in class tomorrow.